surveys in a car, Debbie.
Okay,
The hard copies.
thank you.
Ready? Okay. Welcome to the Rye-Town Park Commission meeting of June 20th, 2017. Please rise, and I'll ask Mayor Falanka to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Salanitro?
Here.
Commissioner Rosenberg?
Here.
Commissioner Falanka?
Here.
President Zuckerman?
Here. We have adoption of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes for May 16th and also for our community conversation of May 21. If there are no additions or corrections, may I have a motion and a second for both?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Park management report. Terry?
Well, our season officially opened on the 26th. Unfortunately, as it has been since April, weather conditions have not been very favorable to us. We've had a few days that we've been closed because of the weather. We're hoping it gets better. We've also, as you all know, encountered a lot of structural problems this season. But despite that, I'm really looking forward to working with my staff and my senior staff, and I think we put together a really great team for this year. As far as maintenance goes, L&M Roofing did complete their temporary work on the structures, both the bathroom building and the administration building. The pipe that broke in the parking lot was repaired. We ran mold tests on 4 different offices within the administration and bathhouse. We got a remediation plan, and we have just received the proposals for that remediation, and they're being reviewed. Bartlett is trimming trees. The treatment, the pond looks great. Finally, the algae is cleared. We got the DEC permit, and that cleared it up. We actually weeded all the flower beds, and we're looking good as far as the best we can with the flowers being weeded, and the front entrance is looking really nice. I want to thank Paul Rosenberg for generously letting us use your light tower. It's out in the park and ready for use. We will be adding 3 to them for the 4th of July weekend. Security, we have a full complement of rangers on duty both day and night. And as far as incidents, we had a woman who had a heart attack, and of course we have our usual heat and alcohol exhaustion issues. One of the things that we're really working on is stopping the alcohol from going on to the beach, especially from the restaurant, so that has its challenges. Cashiers, we have full staff. We are in the process of, and you'll see the presentation tonight, we're in the process of completing the online process for permit applications, and we're hoping to go live with that very shortly. As far as lifeguards, you know, we did a promotion to get new lifeguards. I want to let you know that 9 lifeguards are now certified and on the schedule. And I want to congratulate them because I did watch what they went through to get certified. And I want to thank especially Bob Smalt, who is the assistant lifeguard captain, who did the training. We held an employee orientation on May 21st. We have about 80 plus employees working part-time or full-time this year, and approximately 60% of them are returning from last year. Tonight starts our concert series on Tuesday nights. Ocean Grill is sponsoring a concert in the park on June 29th, and our movie in the park is scheduled for the 13th. As far as finances, for the month of May, we're down $46,356, and total variance from April 1st to May 31st is $49,528. For the first 14 days of June, we're actually $29,677 ahead of those 14 days of 2016. And you could see our donations from April 1st to May 31st total $1,546, and for the month of June, for the 14 days, it's $60. The artist that did the sculpture in the park was there on the last Tuesday giving a speech. 3 new benches were put up in the park that were donated. Press releases continue to go out. And the last thing, Bill Lawyer was awarded a certificate from the Chamber of Commerce for his work in the collaboration of programs for its members. So I'd like to thank Bill for that. The other things, preparations for the 4th of July are in process. Schedules are being put together, and all safety measures that we will be reviewing this Friday. I do have a meeting with Playland on Monday to review the overall plan with them. 2 things that I'd like to ask of the commission. Ocean Grill has asked if it's possible that they have a DJ on the beach on 4th of July from 6 to 10. And they'd also like to sell little, glow sticks and little 4th of July tchotchkes on that night even also.
Comments?
So you wanted to ask about parking?
About what?
Parking?
Oh, also, every year we ask that we're allowed to park employees beyond the ropes to make room in the parking lot for patrons. So I'd like permission to do that again this year.
Any objection from the board? Nope. Nope. Permission granted.
For all of them?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just from a process point of view, it's really important that he should, from a process point of view, so we get off on the right foot, if he has a request, he should put it in writing. 2 things happen. A, it's on the agenda, the public has a chance to comment on it. It's just the right way of doing business. I understand he wants to, have some music and sell some tchotchkes, but those things get out of hand after a while, so.
Okay. I just told
I'm
them
actually
that.
not in favor of it, to be honest with you. I vote no.
I thought you just said yes.
I didn't say yes. I said process. It should be a formal request, and it should be something
Okay.
that should be done in a different light. You shouldn't speak on his behalf.
Okay. I told him that I would ask. He asked me, and I said that I would bring it up. So sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault. I'm just saying that let's get off on the right foot.
Right.
Right, well, we don't have a majority, so the answer is no.
Okay. For the parking?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that it, Terry? Okay, thank you.
There's one other thing for the park manager report I wanted to say, is that we've got a report of a slip and fall in the parking lot last week. And with a lady who complained about the unevenness of the asphalt. We may hear more about that.
Plus, I want to add that I did a deposition, so I just got it, so I'm reviewing it for the other case. And I just want to say thank you to Brenda and Sarah for working so hard in the back office, supporting us also, in addition to the 2 of you.
Thank you, Terry. We have a presentation of the online permit and facility rental systems that Terry mentioned. And actually, before we go on in conjunction with that, the Rye-Town Park Commission has always operated with paper agendas and backup, et cetera. We are now on a computerized system. I keep forgetting the name of it, Debbie.
iCompass.
iCompass, which we have to thank the Village of Rybrook for suggesting. Fantastic. Debbie was in communication with Chris Bradbury a while ago and suggested that. We contacted iCompass, and we have installed it, and this is the first time we're using it. As you can see, I have an iPad, and everything is here. And when I want to look up anything, I just hit a button, and all the paper pops up. And this is the way we're going to be going in the future. The town of Rye is doing the same, and it's a fantastic system. Tonight's agenda with all of the attachments was a total of 207 pages long, and this is a fantastic improvement. It also, we save paper, we save time. There are virtually no downsides. Jamie, comment?
2 seconds. The only thing you need to make sure, though, is that people have Wi-Fi so they can access it when they're in this room. And so if there's a Wi-Fi that Debbie could send out to people, because I've got my iPad, but I can't open any of the pages. It's great, great, great. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
John, can you help her with Wi-Fi?
Can't do it now.
Okay. Okay.
And now we have a presentation from PayPal and Sturgis. So, gentlemen, introduce yourselves and tell us what this is all about, although Terry has, I think, has started using some of it.
I'm Randy Sturgis, and I'm from right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're partners with PayPal.
My name is Devin Whitney. I work on PayPal's government solutions team.
So Debbie and I were introduced last January, and through PayPal, because her brother actually works for PayPal, and they wanted to essentially do what was just described with the meetings, is take a lot of what you've been doing traditionally and put it online where people can go take care of their business, make their payment to the town of Rye or Crawford Park or whatever. So we really got started probably in earnest in February. We're most of the way through, is it fair to say, Terry? But those last details are always the one that gets you. And as of, for instance, you can now, let me just go ahead and pull this up. You can either renew your permit or sign up for a new permit. And once that's completed, once you go through the process, this is what you get right here. The card. Well, the problem is at the park, they're using a scanner that doesn't scan the phone, or it doesn't scan. A lot of people will have little apps that they'll scan their cards, myself included, like your Y card. Well, your scanners don't scan those right now. So you always run into those kind of little things, and we're working through those. Also, with the parks, we want to get the calendars online right now because it's a very manual process that people have to go through to find out what's going on with the parks. So you guys were using Google, trying to get it out where you can see it all. You guys were using Google Calendars. You gave us access to it, so it goes and shows by month what days they're rented, from what time. You can't see the name of the person who's renting it.
This is,
But you can see the actual time it's being rented.
pardon me, Randy, this is for the pavilion rentals.
I'm sorry. I didn't say that, did I? I said parks. The pavilions at the parks. I'm just learning about what we've been talking about by actually visiting here. So you can also go rent the facility. And we take you down through. It's basically just adapting the paper, as you described, those 200 pieces of paper. You know, there's a bunch of paper you have to go through to rent these things currently. So we just adapted it electronically. And then you can go in and upload the file of your picture and upload the file of a scanned copy of a proof of liability insurance and so on and so forth. So they can do it all from their phone or their computer. And then once they've done it, once they've filled it all out, once you make the choices on what you want, we automatically know how much you need to pay. So this little button down here will tell you what it is that you need to pay. You just hit pay, and then PayPal takes the payment. And then Terry and others, I think Brenda as well, can go and actually print off what they need to do. And we hope to automate that more even further. But first things first, you got to get the user interface up and running. It's all very secure. It's all hosted in the Amazon cloud. All payments are made through PayPal, which is the most secure method in the world globally. So that's a real basic. The toughest part is getting all the business rules down. You know, you need this with this, you need that with that, getting that all just right. That's kind of where we are, and Terry said we think we've got it where it needs to be as of today. Any questions, comments, concerns?
What if somebody cancels? Do they have to go back in there and cancel? Is there a cancellation policy that's on this as well?
I believe
Somebody
if they go
reserves.
through until they make the payment, there's nothing to cancel. Once they make the payment, they've got to deal with, I guess, Terry
Internal.
at that point.
But administratively, we can go in there if there is a cancellation on the date that they select. Administratively, we can go in and change that date?
Actually, all we're doing is using the calendar that they're keeping.
Okay.
So there's not like a second calendar. If she cancels it out on her Google Calendar, it will reflect up there automatically,
Okay.
update automatically.
And there's no double booking or?
Yeah, it's just a hosted version of Terry's calendar.
Okay. That's good.
That's great.
Okay. We still got some, you know, what Terry said she'd like to do is really sort of soft launch it this year and work all the bugs out and really have it even more robust for next year.
Is there any user fees on PayPal in terms of percentages, cost? to
The
business?
person that's paying for the rental or the beach renewal pays 2.5% plus 30 cents to PayPal.
It's the same merchant fee that we pay for our other credit cards.
We pay, but you said that the
No,
user pays.
You're not absorbing it, are you, Debbie? You are?
Yeah,
Okay.
we are.
Oh, we are absorbing.
Right, in the
Okay.
same way that we've been taking credit card payments at Wright Town Park for years.
Okay.
It's the same. So if they pay it by credit card, we absorb the merchant fee.
Sturgis and PayPal don't, whatever the city or county or town tells us to do, that's what we do.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, that's a policy. I just kept the policy the same as it has been. If you want to change it, that's a decision the commission can make.
Just extra question.
It's a good question, Ben.
It is a good question.
Glad you
Excellent question. I'm glad you asked it. On the permitting process, we are getting much more information, as I understand it, than we ever have before. Is that correct? In terms of, we're able to keep track of who's taking out permits, where they're living?
We can, whatever they put in here, you will have forever in one spot. In terms of what we're hosting now, our system is actually talking to a system that you have, and we worked with a gentleman that Terry uses, Michael Lazarus. And so they kind of talk back and forth to each other. But yes,
Yeah, because we never before had in one place our permit holders, where they're coming from, et cetera. And what I'm looking for is when we get all of the scanning up, when people are entering the park, time that they're entering, how long they're entering, to be able at some point to correlate the permit as a first step with our parking. And for non-permit holders, we'll have to work out a different system, obviously. But we want to encourage everybody to get a permit because it's so fast and easy. But
Sure.
this is just the first step.
right.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I mean, every city and town and village is putting in parking meters, as Portchester has, where you put in the time. Every mall, you pay according to how long you're there, et cetera, so that, people who are there all day will pay more money than people who are there for an hour. That's a commission decision to make, but we certainly want to have the capability to do that. Yeah. Yeah. It would help with automating the parking system as well. All right. Is that it, gentlemen? Thank you so much. Thank you. I just wanted to, before we get to capstone, I want to do report on some capital work. Terry mentioned the emergency repairs that we're doing as a result of the storms and the deteriorated condition. Lisa Easton just sent to us, was it last night or this morning? I don't even remember.
Last night.
A complete report on the existing conditions of both the administration building and the bathhouse. She also sent us a report that we need to send to FEMA. If many of you will recall that in Superstorm Sandy, we had received funds for the roof, and the scope of that repair was well under what the proper scope should have been. So we're making application to FEMA on that through Lisa to extend the scope, and perhaps we can get additional funding. FEMA obviously is also involved with the seawall restoration, and Benny and I and Dolph Rotfeld have been having discussions as to what the scope should actually be, and we've determined to reduce somewhat the scope of the replacement, which was actually, if you'll remember, a request of the city of Rye. What we're going to do, assuming we get approval from FEMA, is to totally construct the new seawall at the place where the large opening occurs. The rest of the seawall will be will be repaired, mortared. What's the proper term, Benny, to?
The joint repairs?
The joint repairs, et cetera. This is all based on some core holes that were dug by a contractor to determine the sufficiency of the base on the existing seawall. In addition, we're awaiting final plans within the next day or so of both ramps, the middle ramp and the south gate ramp, to make them handicap accessible. We hope to get construction drawings very shortly, and we want to pay for that, at least partially, through a grant through the CFA process with the state for handicap accessibility. And that application is due July 28th, I believe. And so we want to have those figures completed well before then. We're going to be talking about, let me just do a prelim. I see we have an update from the Restaurant Steering Committee. I don't know if we really have an update. But I just want to advise the public that the home rule request that we approved, both the city and the town of Rye, as well as the commission, approved a home rule request to amend state law allowing us to have a restaurant license for up to 20 years. That has passed the Senate. It is sitting on the Assembly floor, having passed committee, and is waiting passage tomorrow. I just got a text from Steve Otis on that. So we are well on our way on that. That's all I have on capital work. I think that's quite enough. Anybody on the commission want to comment on that? Okay. Next up, we have a discussion regarding the Wagner capstone recommendations, and I think Debbie can handle that. It is in our packet. I believe it's also on the website, Deb?
Yes.
You want to go through that?
Well, no, it's in the packet.
It's in the packet. It
report
will be-
itself is on the website.
The report is on the website,
Yeah.
so Deb will take us through.
You know, without page numbers, this is throwing me off. Here we are. So I reproduced in the report, the final written report that we received from the NYU Wagner capstone team was a punch list of strategies that they recommendations. I basically took that and responded point by point to each one and where we stand. So currently in process, strategy 2.1, streamline the website. Website improvements are being implemented on an ongoing basis. I receive comments and ideas regularly, and if we can, we absolutely do include those, and we'll continue to do so. Establish a direct line of communication for reservations and comments and concerns. There is now a link for questions and concerns inserted on the Rytown Parks homepage. Those messages will come to me, and I will forward them to the commission. If the commissioners wish to receive those directly, I'm more than happy to arrange that. You can just let me know. Automate the payment systems for parking and fees. I believe we've just covered that. That is certainly happening. Hire a consultant to recommend ADA upgrades. We are awaiting guidance from the commission on that, but we are moving ahead with the engineering reports for the accessibility ramps, and also we'll be looking at accessibility for our bathrooms as well. Seek out funds to increase disability access. President Zuckerman just referred to the fact that we are preparing a grant application for the current CFA, or Consolidated Funding Application, grant application cycle. It is the plan that, so Steph is looking at what we can do from the commission standpoint, what we can do from the town standpoint, and also I've been conferring with Marcus Serrano, the Rye City Manager, to see what the city of Rye can do from their perspective. Perhaps we can go at this from multiple angles. Increased trash pickup during peak hours. We have reorganized somewhat the job description of our parking attendants, and they are now, when they are not directing traffic, they are now picking up trash. So hopefully, park goers will see a difference in the presence of trash on the park and on the beach. In addition to that, we have doubled the number of trash receptacles at the park, or nearly doubled. Enhanced lighting. We have, thanks to the Village of Rybrook, borrowed a mobile light tower. If you recall, on the list of capital requests from staff have been mobile light towers to use for people at night to make passage safer. We will be using the light tower we have borrowed and seeing what we can learn from that experience to make a decision for a recommendation for next year. I'm also going to be looking at other kinds of lighting solutions for parks that are being used. Upgrades for bathrooms. As I just said, upgrades for bathrooms are expected to be included in the architect's report and recommendations. Renovate the buildings, boy, I'll say. Provide quality, affordable food options. I would say that the Ocean Grills developed its menu and expanded its hours to include morning coffee and pastries with these objectives in mind. In terms of near-term priorities, now these are things that we need guidance from the commission. Assemble a visioning task force, develop a strategic plan, revisit an area-wide parking plan, increase awareness of parking and transportation alternatives. Medium term, increase and sustain a community engagement. Establish a citizens advisory committee to assist the Rye-Town Park Commission. Develop a protocol for rule enforcement. I would say that we are working on that as well. We've been talking with our park rangers and also with area police departments to see what we can do about empowering our rangers to put a little bit more teeth and authority into their enforcement of park rules.
Let me just interject there. We had a meeting several weeks ago with the City of Rye Police, Manager, Council, our council, myself, Debbie, park staff, to talk about some of our park rules. As you are aware, the smoking policy in the park has not really been enforceable because the City of Rye does not have a no smoking ordinance for its parks. So the solution that we came up with is the town of Rye will tonight pass a town local law banning smoking in any park owned and or operated by the town of Rye, and that will be enforceable in Rye Town Court. And we are now going to look at the methodology of enabling our rangers to become certified to issue tickets in that regard, so that we will be able to enforce our own rules. So anyway, Debbie, you want to pick up from there?
All I have to do is find my spot. Yes. Establish a resiliency plan. That is also something that we would need advisement on. Long-term priorities. Establish a conservancy focused on building and infrastructure restoration. President Zuckerman has been in...
I can jump in on that. Yes, President Zuckerman was in touch actually at the recommendation of the Capstone Group. They mentioned the Greenwich Point Conservancy. I have been in touch with them, and I had a couple of conversations with their president, Chris Franco, and he will be attending our next meeting to tell us about his conservancy and how they raise money and maintain the structures at Greenwich Point Park, which is also known as Todd's Point.
The last two remaining strategy suggestions were establish an area-wide partnership with neighboring facilities and organizations. I think that is a superb idea. Certainly we've started a lot of give and take already in terms of programming. The Rye Library, for example, has a story time, but I think so much more can be done and discussions to be had with regard to partnering with our local organizations and other waterfront facilities. And lastly, repurpose the administration building for educational or artistic use. Gary, do you want to interject there? On the repurpose the administration building, the discussions with
that
Lisa?
will be done with the recommendations that our architect has made. I think that's one of the issues that Lisa Easton has discussed with us, is repurposing the administration building to be its former self, which was not as an administration building. I think that's a discussion that will have to be had over a period of time and obviously involve the community. It's very interesting. I was at a party a week or so ago, and a Rye resident mentioned to me, why don't we burn the buildings down? Because frankly, it's going to be very expensive to fix them. And we have to have a very serious conversation about what we want those buildings to do. how we want to repurpose them. We've had I won't say a lot, but we've had some requests for different things, and it's up to the commission ultimately to decide what we're going to do with it, how it's going to be done, and most importantly, how it's going to be paid for. We know that we're talking about sums not in the low millions, but possibly, certainly exceeding $10 million to do it right. So we're going to have to give serious consideration as to exactly what we're going to do. And this is a decision that shouldn't just be made by the 6 of us up here. This is a decision that has to have a buy-in from all of the constituents. It's going to have a buy-in from the City Council in Rye, by the Town Council in the town of Rye, and by the constituent villages as well, because this is going to affect, unless we can get somebody to pay for it, such as a conservancy on a volunteer basis, this is going to cost a great deal of money, and we have to make sure that we do what the entire community wants us to do. So this will take a lot more input than just the capstone report. Any comments? Deb, you want to continue?
That's it.
Okay. We had a discussion last meeting about golf carts and light towers. And certain members of the public, especially Russ, who's not here tonight, raised some very, very, very good questions about what kind of golf carts we should get. Do we need golf carts? How many we should get? Staff looked into this. There's a memo in the file. Debbie, you want to just go over briefly what you found, gas versus electric, leasing versus buying? So.
Yes. As requested, I did some research. Assisted by the Rye Town Park staff, Terry Finelli and Larry Miano were incredibly helpful in this regard. Did a huge amount of legwork. The question of electric versus gas came down to how much we use our carts. We have a fleet of 4 carts that start working at about 6 in the morning, and essentially they don't stop until, well, some of them stop at 9 and some of them stop at midnight. So there is just no way that with 4 vehicles that we could do this with electric carts. So gasoline is definitely the way to go. As it turns out, electric carts and gasoline-driven carts are basically the same price if we're buying them, or leasing them for that matter. They're within pennies of each other. So that was one consideration. Now the consideration was leasing versus buying. We could lease at a special U.S. Communities contract price and pay a financing charge of 2.9% per year, and the leases are 48 months. So at the end of the 4 years, the question is, then what? Do we continue to, obviously our annual outlay would be smaller, and that would probably be carried as an operational expense versus a capital expense. But if at the end of the 4 years you're buying the cart, then you're buying it at a market rate, and you're essentially you'd be paying basically about $8,000 for a golf cart that you could buy for much less. So we can buy a brand new golf cart for about $62,000. I'm sorry, $6,200. Thank you very much. $6,200. Used carts, we can get pretty good shape. We can get used carts for pretty good condition for $3,000 from, those are carts from 2011. So the decision of would it be better off leasing versus buying, at the end of the day, the park uses its carts, and those carts go for a long time. The average life expectancy is certainly 15 to 20 years on a cart, if it's treated properly, that we would be much better off buying our carts. So that is how the staff ended up making our recommendations. Ultimately, we have we've found that we've got two different vendors, and they're in a somewhat competitive situation. Ultimately, the staff recommends that of the 4 carts that we have, 2 of them have been repaired and are usable for this season, so we can keep them going. But 2 of them are deemed not worth fixing. And those happen to be our 2004 golf carts. So our recommendation is that we replace those, one with a new golf cart that we can get for $6,200, and that same vendor is offering a 1-for-1 trade-in of $1,100. So that would allow us to buy a brand new golf cart at $5,100. That comes with a 3-year warranty and everything else we want with it. We also recommend we have Terry Finelli has a private buyer for one of our 2004 golf carts, possibly both, that is offering more than $1,100. So what we're recommending is that we sell the other one, or both, if he'll take them both, and buy a used one.
Don't we legally need to put these up as surplus? And
We do.
okay,
So we would declare them
we
surplus
would
and then
declare
trade them in.
surplus. And in terms
or
of
sell.
purchasing a new golf cart, wouldn't we need to put bids out?
This is on a U.S. Communities contract, so no,
Okay.
we don't.
So basically, what we would be able to do is get a new golf cart and a used golf cart for less money than we've allocated in our budget, which we thought would buying one golf cart.
Correct. We should end up, we allocated $8,000 in our capital budget. With this, depending upon what the final deal is we can work, we'll come in about $1,000 under budget. I would also point out that we had $5,100 in the capital budget for a light tower, and thanks to the Village of Rybrook, we're saving that money, so we're coming out well ahead of that game. Lord knows we'll be spending it on other things. But
Yeah, especially if the weather doesn't improve and we don't have the income that we had projected. Since you mentioned the light tower, let's go to item 4.7, the discussion and resolution regarding the intermunicipal agreement with the Village of
Well,
Rybrook.
let me ask you a question before we
Sure.
go there. Are we making a decision now about the golf carts? Do we need to take a vote on anything?
We don't, technically, well, I'm happy to take a vote.
It's expenditure of money.
I know, it's already in the budget though, so I don't know that we actually need a vote, but if we want to vote.
I think you do, even if it's in the budget.
Let's have a motion to buy one new and one used golf cart as described by Debbie.
So moved.
And declare the surplus of the vehicles for trade-in.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Amended, second,
that was Rick?
Fritz,
Yeah, I'll
yes.
second.
Thank you.
Call the roll then.
Commissioner Salanitro?
yes.
Commissioner Rosenberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Falanka?
Yes.
President Zuckerman?
Yes, thank you. The intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Rybrook. We have alluded to that with regard to the light tower. The Rye-Town Park Commission is proposing to enter into such an agreement with the Village of Rybrook. Later this evening, the town of Rye will enter into such an agreement. It's my understanding that the Village of Rybrook and the Village of Portchester already have such an agreement, which
We do.
allows for the intermunicipal sharing of facilities and equipment without the need for a new resolution each and every time, but just the transmission of paperwork between the chief operating officers of the municipalities involved. The IMA is in the packet, as is the resolution. And may I have a motion and a second?
Question?
Motion and a second first, then
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion, Ben?
Question. This falls in line with the governor's initiative and the county executive's initiative on the intermunicipal agreements?
Yes,
So we
shared services, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I was just wondering if it's worthy of a highlight or not.
Yeah, I mean, and it was interesting because several of us were at the Shared Services Forum hosted by the county executive, and a lot of, we had mentioned some of these agreements that the municipalities already had entered into. I think the light tower is something that impelled the commission to do this with the Village of Rybrook, to get that on paper rather than just lending the light tower. We're looking to have the same kind of intermunicipal agreement with the city of Rye, I would hope, because I'm sure that the city does provide services and can provide services. For example, last winter, they graciously loaned us their sewer truck. Actually, they didn't lend us the truck, they lent us the truck and the driver and the sewer guy to clean out some pipes at the park. So this is good for everybody all the way around.
So did
all the-
Rybrook.
And so did Rybrook, okay, yes, thank you. So again, we have a motion and a second. Further comment? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Salanitro?
Yes?
Commissioner Rosenberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Falenka?
Yes.
President Zuckerman?
Yes, thank you. Restaurant Steering Committee, we have that on the agenda. I already mentioned the law that is about to be passed by the legislature. I know, Dan, you're on that steering. Do you have anything, or Debbie, do you want to pick up on that?
We haven't really, we're just scheduling,
Meetings.
trying to get the schedule in place for the interviews for the distribution of the RFP. It's been distributed to the commission members or board members, and, we've commented on it. We had a conference call last week to do that, so it's being revised, and the consultant is going to distribute it based upon the revisions that were suggested.
Right. And what is the timetable?
I don't have it here in front of me. They're
October meetings, no?
the actual face-to-face meetings are scheduled for October.
Right.
Yeah, October 6th.
So the RFP will be out in July, early July,
That's what I thought.
and we'll have at least one pre-bid meeting, possibly two walkthroughs, and then further visits by appointment to the restaurant. And then we are scheduling interviews for the finalists in October.
All right, thank you. A presentation by the Rye Arts Center regarding sculpture installation. And you have been waiting here patiently. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Meg Rodriguez. I'm the Executive Director at the Rye Arts Center. I'm also a resident of Rye, 2 Stony Crest Road. And this is Bob Clyett. Hi. Where you live. No, they wouldn't know where you live.
Bob Clyett, Rye, New York.
So we're here today because the year anniversary of COPE, the sculpture that's been installed at the Rye Town Park, is approaching. And over the past year, we've gotten a lot of very positive feedback about the installation, and people are asking whether or not it's possible that it could be a permanent installation. Bob and I are on the committee. I lead the committee, the Public Art Initiative at the Rye Arts Center. And so we're here to let you know that this has happened, or this is happening. And what we've done is we sent out a survey, a 6-question survey, and broadly we posted on our social media, we shared it with Dog Friends of Rye Town Park. We sent it to people who have given their emails because they have an interest in the art in the park, and got 40 responses, which is a beginning. And it's been overwhelmingly positive to have a permanent piece in Rye Town Park. And actually COPE has been highlighted as a piece that they would like to see. 29 out of 40 people said they would like that piece to be a permanent piece in the park. And we've done a little bit of research and found out that the piece is available for sale. It's owned by the Art Students League of New York, and they're willing to sell it to us for basically cost, which would be $7,500, which we believe we could raise privately. So it would be a very economic decision to move forward. So I think the time is right to either gain support or just put it out there to the constituents to see if there is an interest and if you have an interest in having that piece remain.
Comments?
Absolutely. That'd be great.
I think it'd be great to have.
I have a different view. I like the piece. I have no problem with the piece remaining. I thought that the original concept would be that we would have different pieces installed periodically. And I wouldn't want to give up on that concept. I have no problem with the concept of having more than one piece. It's a large park. Obviously, we would have to speak with the other constituents, all the people who have an interest in the park, the Friends of Rye Town Park, etc. But I think having sculpture in the park is a wonderful thing. The question is whether this should be the one permanent sculpture that we have in the park. And I think my feeling is that it bears some more discussion, and certainly I think discussion among the people in the Rye Arts Center and your constituents as to how to approach it. As I say, if everybody says, let's leave that as a permanent sculpture, I have no problem with that. Personally, I would like to see more and different.
Yes, well, you're right, that was the original concept. But I think these two ideas are not mutually exclusive. Yes, I think we agree.
Okay, great.
Bob, do you want to add?
I would mention that part of the arrangement with COPE is that the Rye Town Park Commission paid the insurance on the sculpture, and that would need to be taken into consideration as well for an ongoing budget item.
I think that that part, we could consider that as part of the money that's raised for a permanent installation would be that, as also ongoing maintenance. I understand that piece is expected to last for 70 to 80 years. And it would be served to be polished periodically, but it can withstand that location, and the installation that's happened is not it wouldn't have to be reinstalled to be permanent.
Good. I think we need to have further discussion on that.
Would you like me to share the survey with you so we can share it more broadly?
Of course.
And then gather more data?
To whom did the survey reach out?
We posted it on our social media. We have about 4,000, I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback here. We have about 4,000 people that follow us on social media. So everyone had the opportunity to do it. And then the Friends of Rye Town Park Facebook group, they also were encouraged to complete it, as well as last week, Damien Vera, the artist who created the piece, came and gave an artist talk. There were about 30 people there, and we got all of their emails and asked them and we shared the survey with them as well.
Good.
So the Friends were okay with it? Because I know they took some exception with the labyrinth and some changes to the master plan. Did you have positive comments from the Friends?
The dog friends?
No, the Friends of the Park.
We have heard three negative comments.
Maybe we should just reach out to we had the commentary about the labyrinth that we kind of jumped the gun and making, I know that.
Okay.
it's
Yeah, we're not
worthy.
certainly not jumping the gun.
I can share the feedback. A lot of people gave anonymous testimonies to how they feel about it. I think they're overwhelmingly positive. There are just three that are not supportive.
I'm curious as to the three that were not supportive. Was it not supportive because they don't want sculpture in the park, or not supportive because they don't like that sculpture?
One was they don't want any art in the park, and 2 did not like that particular sculpture. One wanted one of Bob Hyatt's sculptures instead of that one. So.
I think they were actually confused. It was not one of mine. It was some pieces we installed a couple years ago, but that's a different matter.
So.
Those
But I
pieces,
think in the nature
those were the ones a few years ago.
Yeah.
Stunning.
That,
The colorful ones.
The colorful ones,
I
yes.
think-
Let's leave it at that.
I think-
Imagination
Yeah.
runneth
I
wild.
think with
Yeah.
surveys, you're always going to hear from the people with the strongest opinions, both negative and positive. So
Exactly.
you're going to get that whole spectrum
And you're never going to please everybody.
ever. But you could please 90% of the people by installing this permanently so far.
No, I mean, that's good. As I say, my preference would be to have more sculptures, contrary to the
And
one.
we would like to do that as well.
Contrary to the responder who said we don't want any sculpture in the park. I think that it's a wonderful place for sculpture. I wouldn't want sculptures every 5 feet, but especially on a, if you can get it on a rotating basis, it would be, I think, terrific. It's been obviously a focal point of discussion. I mean, if you've got 30 people to discuss that work of art in the park, I think that's an absolutely wonderful thing.
They did get free parking. I think that helped.
Okay.
I think that helped.
All right.
If I could just add briefly, the concept absolutely was that we would have this pad on which we would rotate pieces, each one for about a year, given the difficulty in installing them. It's just that this piece became so popular, we heard so many people saying, wait, what? It's only going to be up for a year? That we started those inquiries. It is an extraordinary opportunity to purchase this, unusual because it's already owned by a nonprofit who is deaccessioning, and they want to support the artist. Mostly, if we were to ever get a piece in anything similar, the price would be many times this price. It's something, therefore, we also want to have as a Rye Art Center, and we want to be able to raise those funds and gift it to the park and to the public. So we're not beyond, I guess, insurance in the out years. We don't anticipate this as having any financial impact on the park. I want to just be clear about that. And the other thing is that, yes, indeed, we are continuing our plans. Bill Lawyer and I were with the next sculptor just last week, and we're out looking at drawings, looking at sites, and because the original concept was that she would be on that pad, and when that looks like it might not be an option, then we've talked about where else she could be, and we identified 2 or 3 other places that I think would be great for the park and great for the sculpture and sculptor. So those plans are ongoing, and it certainly wouldn't be thwarted or impacted by having the coat piece remain where it is.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
That's
Thank you.
great. Thank you so much.
We're up to an accounting issue. I see Kathy sitting in the back. I'll let Kathy, you can come up and explain what this is. Kathy Hamill is of our accounting team, and apparently Rye-Town Park Commission has been carrying a receivable on its books for 10 years or more.
At
And
least.
the auditors have now apparently discovered it. Why don't you just give a brief background and
Brief background is there is a receivable that is listed as due from the city of Rye in the account that we use for the operating and capital subsidies at the end of every season, should there be a need for Rye to supplement the park. And it's carrying a balance of $76,000 that, based upon research, has been on the books since at least 2004. And there's not a lot of documentation that we can dig up at this point in 2017. The auditors and I have gone back through old audit work papers that were accessible to them, and we cannot support the information. Debbie and I met with Marcus Serrano, the city manager for the city of Rye, and got Joe Facino the deputy controller for the city of Rye on the phone, and they do not concur and they're not in agreement. They are showing that everything that the Parks Commission has billed the city at least since 2010 has been paid for in full, and they cannot support the amount that we're showing either. So it was the recommendation of the auditors.
Before you finish, part of that was interest, correct?
Yes. Yes, one of the pieces of paper that the auditors were able to dig up was an amortization schedule. And apparently there was around $212,000 of capital improvements that was done to the park in 2007. And, well, the $212,000, excuse me, was the City of Rye's portion of the capital improvements. And under the assumption that this was around the time when the recession started, the city did not provide those funds to the park until 2009. So there was interest that was calculated against that amount, but that interest was never billed to the city. I don't know if anybody at the city ever agreed to pay that. Like, we can find no documentation that this was...
There was no IMA between the commission and the city?
No, there was no agreement that the city said, yes, we agree to pay you interest on this outstanding amount, but it was just recorded as still being outstanding and never concurred with by the city of Rye. So the auditor's recommendation was to bring it before the commission and discuss making a prior period adjustment and getting it off the books, because we cannot support it. We have no documentation. We're not in agreement with the city, and we honestly do not think it's collectible.
And you're beyond the period of limitations.
I was just going to...
So it's carried as a liability?
I'm sorry?
Is it considered a liability on our end?
No, it's a receivable on our end.
Okay.
As Dan says, it is beyond the period of the statute of limitations, so it's really not collectible. Paul?
Well, I think that this is obviously from a time when potentially the park ran at a deficit, and the city, you know, obviously never received, they didn't, whoever was running the town or whatever happened back then, there was no exchanging of paperwork that was official. And, you know, obviously, we hear from council it's non-receivable, but I think the right thing to do, whether it was receivable or not, whether it's collectible or not, is we have nothing to back it up. You say we can't defend it, so let's wipe it off the books.
All right. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Either one.
Either.
Okay.
Alphabetical.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Salanitro.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosenberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Falenka.
Yes.
President Zuckerman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Public comment on non-agenda items. Would anybody like to speak on any item to the commission? Hearing none?
Can I say one thing?
You have something?
I-
Mr. Turner. Oh, by the way, Dan Tartaglia is sitting in for Jeff Binder. I should have said that in the beginning. As attorney for the commission tonight, Jeff Binder's daughter is graduating high school this evening, and he felt badly that he couldn't come, and I said, don't you dare come to this meeting tonight. Go to your daughter's graduation. Anyway, Dan.
Yes, Mr. President, I did notice in the IMA between the village and the town, in the insurance provision, there's a requirement in there for naming each other as additional insured. There may be advantages to naming each other as named insured as opposed to additional insured. And I think that you may want to have whoever handles the insurance for the village and the town take a look at this.
All right, very good idea.
Would we need to get a new resolution based on that?
Well, let's
The
make a
wording
determination. We've passed that resolution. Let's make it.
Semantics.
Let's just look into it, and if it's better, then we'll change it. If council thinks that we need a new resolution, we'll do it. Otherwise, we will just do it administratively.
Constructive. Motion to adjourn? I gotta leave anyway.
All right. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.